Yeah. What's good? What's good? Shalom, shalom. What's cracking? What's cracking? I know y'all see the title. Yes, back at it again. You know, moving along this, great holiday that we celebrating called Feast of Dedication, better known as Hanukkah, right? Yeah, we back at it. Black History, BC. Getting into our ancestors, our culture, and understanding, you know, how our people, fought for their nation, right? And fought for their God, and was able to, regain the land of Israel, and that's why when we read in the New Testament, they was, still there, right? And, it had the temple. Um, so yeah, getting right back into it. Black History BC, right? There's a God in Israel, a Maccabean tale. Um, but before we get right into it, of course, giving all praises to the Most High, we do so in His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world better known as Jesus Christ, right? So yeah, we're just gonna jump right into it though. Let's go to First Maccabees chapter 4, right? First Maccabees chapter 4. Because we had left off in chapter 3. So again, we're not gonna read every single thing. We're gonna try to read as much as we can. During this holiday, right? Very important story, very important history, to our people, and so yeah, it's important that we know these things, understand the different heroes and all that stuff we had, right? Different people that that stood up for our people, and again, we can take this information and we can pull from it and draw strength from it, knowing that we come from a rich culture, right? So yeah, let's get right into it. Yeah, chapter 4, First Maccabees, right? Then it says, then took Gorgias 5,000 footmen and 1,000 of the best horsemen, and remove out of the camp by night, right? So, they moving out. And it says, to the end that he might rush upon the camp of the Jews and smite them suddenly. And the men of the fortress were his guides. And now when Judas heard thereof, himself removed, and the valiant man with him, that he might smite the king army, which was at Emmaus, right? So this you got this guy Gorgias. He's coming, trying to come with his little 5,000 men to try to make war with us. And Judas, he heard of it, so he like, all right, let's move out. Try to position ourselves so we can ambush these guys, right, when they come through, right? So then, it says, while yet the forces were dispersed from the camp, in the mean season came Gorgias by night into the camp of Judas, and when he found no man was there, he sought them in the mountains, for he said, these fellows flee from us. Himself in the plain with 3,000 men, who nevertheless had neither armor nor swords to their minds. And they saw that the camp of the heathen that was strong and well harnessed and compassed around about with horsemen, and these were expert at war. Then Judas said to the men that were with him, fear not their multitude, neither ye be afraid of their assault. Remember how our fathers were delivered in the Red Sea when Pharaoh pursued them with an army. Now, therefore, let us cry unto heaven, if peradventure the Lord will have mercy upon us, and remember the covenant of our fathers, and destroy this host before us, before our face this day, so that all the heathens may know there is one who delivered and saveth Israel. Right? So like, look, telling these people, look, don't be afraid, right? Because because they had to leave camp because they found out that that Gorgias and his soldiers was marching down on them. Then it says, what is that? So it says, boom, boom. Yeah, that's the part. Because so Judas showed himself in the plain with 3,000 men, who nevertheless had neither armor nor swords to their minds. Right. So and he saw the camp. Boom, boom. All right. So yeah. So basically, what I'm saying, they like, they was outnumbered. What I'm saying, didn't have the proper weapons. Right. So it's telling his troops, like, look, don't fear, because remember, we got a God that fight for us, and we can, we understand history and how God, did for our ancestors, and all we have to do is just pray, and that God remember His covenant, and He continue to save us, right? Then it says, then the strangers lift up their eyes and saw them coming over against them, wherefore they went out of the camp to battle. They were with Judas sound their trumpets, so they joined in battle, and the heathen, being discomfort, fled into the plain. Howbeit, all the hindmost of them were slain with the sword, for they pursued them. So we was able to, even though they were outnumbered, they was able to put them to flight and and win, right? And it says, for they pursued them unto Gazaria, and unto the plains of Idumea, and Atos, and Jamna, so that there were slain of them upon 3,000 men. This done, Judas returned again with his host from pursuing them, and said to the people, be not greedy of the spoils as much as a battle before us, and Gorgias and his hosts were here by us in the mountains, but stand ye now against our enemies and overcome them, and after this ye may boldly take spoils. And Judas was just speaking these words, there appeared a part of them looking out of the mountains, who when they perceived the Jews had put their host to flight, and were burning tents for smoke, for the smoke that was seen declared that was done. When therefore they perceived these things, they were sore afraid, and seeming also the host of Judas in the plains already to flight, they fled every one into the land of the strangers. Then Judas returned to spoil the tents, where they got much gold and silver and blue silk and purple of the sea and great riches. So we ran them off. They end up leaving their stuff. We we end up taking it for ourselves, right? Then it says, after this, they went home and sung a song of thanksgiving and praise of the Lord of heaven, because it was good, because His mercy endure forever. So after we beat them and mistreat them, we went to the studio and made a diss track. You know what I'm saying? But not joking. So what happened? So after we beat them, then we went home and we praised the Lord about it. We was being thankful and making supplications, and and honoring God for our victory, right? So that's what it means by we song a song. Meaning we, had a story to tell, right? Was telling people about the victory in the battle, right? And how God has saved us. And it says, boom, boom. Hold on one second. And one second, hold on, little guy, okay? All right. Hold on one second. So boom, boom, boom. All right. Hey. Hold on. One second. Hold on. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. So yeah. All right. Let's start right here at 25. Then it says, "Thus Israel had a great deliverance that day. Now all the strangers, that had escaped came and told Elias what had happened. Found it and discouraged because neither such things as he would were done unto Israel, nor such things as the king commanded him were done. Commanded him were to come to pass. The next year, therefore, following Elias, gathered together 70,000 choice men of foot and 5,000 horsemen that he might subdue them. So they came back after they got their butt kicked. They tried to regroup their army, right? Then it says, so they came into Idumea and pitched their tents at Bashura, and Judas met them with 10,000 men. And when he saw that the mighty army, he prayed and said, "Blessed art thou, O Savior of Israel, who doest quell violence of the mighty man by the hand of his servant David, and gavest the host of the strangers unto the hand of Jonathan, the son of Saul, his armor bearer. Shut this army in the hands of thy people Israel, and let them be confounded in their power and horsemen." So he's praying that God will help them destroy this army that's coming upon them, right? And because that's the spirit that our people had, because you gotta understand, we have a God that fight for us, when the Israelites is keeping their laws and commandments or whatever. There's no army on this planet that can beat us, because we have the all-powerful, all-knowing, almighty God fighting with us, right? And who can fight with that? So, and it says, make them be of no courage, and cause the boldness of their strength to fall away, and let them quake at their destruction. So put the fear of God in these people when they run up on us, right? So cast them down with the sword of them that love thee, and let all those who know thy name praise thee with thanksgiving. So they joined battle and were slain the host of Elias, about 5,000 men, even before them were slain. Now when Elias saw his army put to flight, in the in the manliness of Judah's soldiers, because we're some thugged out gangsters, right? And he saw the boldness in the soldiers, the militantness, the togetherness, that the brotherhood that we had as an army, right? So he's looking at it, he's watching his soldiers run away in battle and fall in the the battlefield. And he's seeing us standing bold like a lion, right? And it says, Elias saw his army put to flight in the manliness of Judah's soldiers, and how they were ready either to live or die valiantly. And he went into Antiochia and gathered together a company of strangers, having made his army greater than it was. He proposed to come again to Judea. So just like how these people do, their philosophy, they always say more force, right? If you ever, especially you get into they army, that's their thing, more force. That's why they believe in strength in numbers, right? That's why you ever watch those videos and you be like, why the police ain't doing nothing, right? But that's because they believe in strength in numbers. They're not going to do nothing if it's only one or two of them. But when they get a gain of them, then that's when they move. Because, so then dude's like, all right, we got our butt kicked, so let me go, holler at these soldiers over here in Antiochia and make a bigger army and come back, right? See, but that's the problem. See, he don't know the God that we serve, right? The God that we serve is not concerned with numbers, right? And, like people could be, we all concerned about numbers and stuff, right? Especially in this day and age, everybody, TikTok or podcasting or, whatever they doing, right? And everybody looking at the views and the likes and all that cool stuff, right? Because that's their validation. But you gotta understand, the God that we serve, he's not concerned with numbers, right? And we forgot when David sinned against the Most High when he numbered Israel because, he was feeling himself like, because, man, I got the strongest army, we just kicking everybody butt. Like, matter of fact, let me just see how many soldiers I got on deck. Let me see how many soldiers I got on call. I just want to know, because we out here wrecking stuff. So that's a commandment that God gave to Israel, to the king. You don't number the people unless God tell you to number the people. You just because now you're getting pride, because you're like, all right, well, I got this much, I can do, but that's crazy, right? Because God does a lot with a little, right? And that's what people gotta understand. And that's why it says, wide is the gate to destruction and narrow is the path, to life, and few that find it, right? It's a reason that's in there, right? Because God doesn't deal with the bulk. He deals with the very small minority. Because he can take that very small minority and make it great, and then the bulk is going to see it and be like, wow, that was cold. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it is a God, right? So it says, then said Judas and his brethren, behold, our enemy are discomfort. Let us go up and cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. So right. So so the Most High gave us a little rest from our enemies. So he gave us a little liberty so we can go back into Jerusalem and rebuild and dedicate the temple again, right? Not to say that it wasn't little scrimmages going out throughout other parts of the land, but right in that part, God gave us peace so we can set up the temple again, right? Like you read in the prophecy of Daniel, how the temple, would be set back up again, right? So he gave us that time, right? And so then it says, upon all the hosts, it says, upon this all the hosts assembled themselves together and went into the Mount Zion, and when they saw the sanctuary desolate, and the altar profaned, and the gates burnt up, and the shrubs growing in the courts, as in a forest, or in one of the mountains, yet the priests in the chambers pulled down, they rent their clothes and made great lamentation and cast ashes upon their heads. So meaning when they saw how messed up the temple was, because they've been battling for God knows how many years, right? So they finally, was able to make it back to Jerusalem. Like, all right, we got a little, we ran them off, they gonna, they gonna cry in the car. We ran them off. Just refix this, right? So then when they come there, they see how jacked up the temple is. So they heartbroken, they saddened, they looking like, wow, it's a lot of work we got to do. It's a lot of, the temple is torn down, the altar is profaned because they've been sacrificing pork and God knows everything else, lion, cheetah, goat, whatever the Greeks was into, right? Putting statues of Zeus in there, all this stuff, right? So they profaned the temple, right? So when they saw the destruction of the temple, it was very disheartening to them, to the point where they, physically and mentally sick, right? That's why it says they rent their clothes and made great lamentation and cast ashes upon their heads. Meaning they was, in anguish, right? And they showed their anguish, in their actions, just by like, like sometimes you be so mad so depressed. Some people, they don't change their clothes for a while, right? They just stay in bed like for, the whole week or whatever, right? Just don't want to do nothing with yourself, right? So that's, when it says they rent their clothes and made great lamentation and cast ashes upon their heads, meaning, they was just in a lowly state, overall, because of how the land and the temple was looking, right? Because that's how important it was to us. Because our place of worship, our God, that's the center of Israel, right? That's the whole everything. So they was upset about that. And it says, and fell down flat on the ground upon their faces and blew a alarm with trumpets and cried towards heaven. Right? And it says, Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress and cleanse the sanctuary, right? So, like I said, so they have to, they have to get their fight on too at the same time. Hold on one sec. Hold on. Fine. Alright. Alright, well, yeah. I'll look it up. Thank you. But, so yeah, back over here. So, so it says they fell down flat on the ground in their faces and blew a alarm with the trumpet and cried towards the heavens. Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress until he had cleansed the sanctuary. So that's kind of similar to you familiar with the story of Nehemiah and Ezra when they built the second temple. And they was fighting and holding people off, and fighting at the same time. Hold on really quick. Hold up. Okay, yeah, that's what I was looking for right here. So it's Nehemiah 4:17, right? So because it was very similar to what was going on here. Because what it say? Says Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress until he had cleansed the sanctuary. Because again, like in the initial area where we at temple, that's cool. We got that on lock, but we were still having little scrimmages in other spots. So right here, Nehemiah 4:17. So this is what we have to do dealing with these people. In order to try to serve our God and have our liberty, right? our sovereignty, right? It says, uh, they which built the wall, and they that bear burdens with those that laden, every one of his hands are wrought with work, and with the other. So it says every one of their hands wrought with work. So they're building, right? I don't know if everybody ever seen like the back in 2000, early 2000s, the little clips they used to show of Iraq and stuff when they was doing their thing over there, blowing up everybody. And so America was like blowing up everything, but then they had soldiers building stuff, right? So, and then there was one video I was watching. They was literally building a wall or something. They was building, and they had their little rifle in one hand, and they just doing their little stuff, and they shooting, and one person is building, and the other person is shooting, right? So it says which built the wall, and they that bear burdens with those that laden, every one with one of his hands wrought with work. So one of his hands was working, so they building this wall, and with the other hand held a weapon, right? That's what we have to do, right? We building with one hand and fighting with the other, right? And that's similar to what's going on here in this story right here. When Judas sent those men up to hold it down while they do the building and fixing up the temple, right? So it says, for the builders, everyone had his sword girdled by his side, so build, and he that sounded the trumpet was by me. Now that's kind of that's called protect, every man protect the man to your right. That's what that called, right? Because let's read it again. It says, for the builder, everyone had a sword girded by his side, meaning they had their thing on them. They had their pistol on their side. They had their gun right there, ready to roll. If anybody roll up, they quick draw, bow, 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 bang, 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 right? So it says, for the builders, and everyone had a sword girdled at his side, meaning they had their sword ready for war. Then it says, so and so build. So they building and fighting, and it says, and he that sounded the trumpet. So the one that was the lookout. This is why I said every man protect the man to your right. He that was the lookout, he ain't got no sword. His job is to blow the trumpet. So when you see the enemy coming, like, hey yo, whatever they say, hooty hoo. I imagine they probably said something like that, hooty hoo. Yo yo yo, right? So then, since he didn't have no weapon, he stood next. What did my dear brother Nehemiah said? He said, and he that sounded the trumpet was by me. So like, so I got your back. You stay right here. I'm gonna hold you down and all that, right? You ain't gotta hold no gun, right? I got this, right? I'm gonna do all the killing, right? That's what Nehemiah was on. Each one, keep each other back, right? So that's what was going on. Let's get back over here. Matter of fact, then it says Judas appointed certain men against those that were in the fortress until he had cleansed the sanctuary. And it says, so he and the priest blameless conversation as has pleasure in the law. Wait, hold on. So let me read it right. It says he chose priests of blameless conversation as had pleasure in the law. So he's getting it together. Trying to build the temple. Like, all right, we need some priests that's all about this. The Most High and know the law. That right. And it says he chose priests that was blameless. For of the law, right? And a lot of people get confused, right? Because they were like, well, nobody can be perfect, and Jesus was the only one that kept the law. But I mean, that's emphatically not true, because we can read all through the Bible. Many people kept the law, right? And if you're familiar with the covenant that God has with the Israelites, I mean, shoot, we would have died day one if nobody really kept the law, right? So people kept the law. And what I was looking for, oh yeah, Micah. or something like that. Malachi. Or maybe it is Micah. Alright, hold on. Let's get a Malachi 2 and 7 real quick. Matter of fact. Boom, 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 boom. So, let's read this one more time. So it says, so he chose priests of blameless conversation as such as had pleasure in the law, right? So, and that's the thing, you gotta have pleasure in the law, understanding of the law. You know, if you're gonna be a so-called spiritual leader, a priest, it says the priest, right? It says, for the priest's lips should keep knowledge, and they should seek the law at his mouth, for he is the messenger of the Lord of hosts, right? So that's why he had to choose blameless men. It says he chose priests of blameless conversation as had pleasure in the law, right? So because it says over here, for the priest's lips should keep knowledge, and they should seek out of the law they should seek the law at his lips, for he is the messenger of Yahweh of hosts, right? So, so the priest, got to be about that, about the business, right? Let's jump up to chapter 4 real quick. Malachi 4 and 4. And it says, remember ye the law of Moses, my servant, which I command unto him in Herbert for all Israel, for with the statutes and judgments, right? So, and that's the thing, we supposed to remember the laws of God, right, and to keep them, right? And that's why the Most High, not the Most High, but that's why our dear brother Judas was chose some trustworthy priests that he can put in charge of the temple, right? That can run it and do it as thus said the Lord, right? So then it says, who cleansed the sanctuary and bear out the defiled stones unto the unclean place, right? And that's too, so they took out, because again, they were sacrificing unclean stuff, putting, the abomination of desolation, as Daniel spoke of, pork and all that stuff, in the sanctuary, prostitution, a whole bunch of stuff going on in the house of the Lord. So, so they had to remove all those bricks and take them out and into a place that was, what it says, it says defile stones into an unclean place, right? So they remove the stones, right? Hold on one second. Salaki. Yeah, Salaki, my bad. So, and it says, boom, boom, boom. It says, who cleansed the sanctuary and bear out the defiled stones unto the unclean place. So yeah, and two, on the flip side, as they removing these stones and trying to rededicate the temple, And on the flip side, on the spiritual side, our body is the temple, right? Because a lot of those people with the little curly stuff hanging from the side, got the little saucers sitting on top, the little coasters, whatever they call it these days, sitting on top. They think it's going to be a physical building that's going to be rebuilt and all that. But we are the temple, right? Not to say that it's not going to be a physical building, but when Yahweh Shai speak of the temple, it's us, the people, right? We are the temple, the church, the Israelites. So, and understanding that our body is like a temple, that's why too, during this process, this holiday, this feast of dedication, you want to cleanse yourself of little impurities that you might have that might be keeping you from serving the Most High God, right? So just like how our Maccabean brothers was taking away the foul stones and the unclean stones and casting it out from the temple, get rid of the undefiled the foul stones that's in your life, right? That's causing you to defile your temple. Cast those out, right? As we, celebrate this holiday of our feast of dedication, right? So you want to, also look at it in a spiritual sense, and cleanse yourself spiritually, right? Because we are the temple of God, right? And so, like I said, so you want to remove these defiled stones, right? And so it says, who cleansed the sanctuary and bear out the defiled stones into a unclean place. And when they consulted what to do with the altar of burnt offerings, which was profane. So, these damn Greeks they even put their little dirty little Greek hands on our altar by putting pork flesh on it, sacrificing, just unclean animals, right? And just see the things that they did, right? Just see how they got down on us, right? Just see the devil that we was dealing with. Let's go to just jump back to chapter 1 real quick, First Maccabees, right? Let's start at 41. First Maccabees chapter 41. Moreover, the king Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people. Don't that sound familiar, right? These people always been that, always want everybody to be one, right? That's the whole thing. This place is called the melting pot, right? And the whole thing is they want to Americanize everybody. Everybody just be one. What they say, you're not American. You're not acting like American. That's not very American, right? They just want everybody to identify with the American culture, right? And that's the same thing this devil Antiochus wanted. Everybody to be Greeks. Because that was Alexander. When you do the history of Alexander, that was his philosophy, right? He thought that's why he went around conquering and murdering and killing and doing all types of stuff to people. Because he thought the Greek way of life was the only way of life and everybody needs to do it, right? Just like, you get something, have you ever tried something so good, right? You ate something that was so good and it's really good. You have to share it with somebody else. Like, hey, this is really good. Hey, you want a piece? You got to try this, right? That's how Alexander was about the Greek culture. He's like, hey, the Greeks are so this and we're so that. Let's go around the world and make them be like us, right? So Antiochus said this. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. So you couldn't, and this is how, like, and when we get to the New Testament and you hear people being called Gentiles and stuff like that, who the epistles are being written to and the disciples are talking to, they're a lot of times they're being referred to Gentiles, right? So then the thing is, it's like This is why. Because it says, well, let's read it one more time. And it says, and everyone should leave his laws, so all the heathen agree according to the commandment of the king. So you weren't allowed to practice your own customs and follow your own way of life under the power of the Greeks, right? You couldn't do it. And it says, yeah, many also of the Israelites, the what? Yeah, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion. So that's how, when you get to the New Testament and you see the apostles and the epistles that's written to those providence in Rome, that's why they're being referred to Gentiles, because what it says, and many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath. So we gave up our culture. Those people that end up drinking the Kool-Aid and start following the ways of the Greeks, we gave up our culture, right? Then and a lot of us was living in those providence already, because if you're familiar with the Persian and the Assyrian captivity, because a lot of us got taken and snatched up and sprinkled out everywhere, right? So yeah, we was end up living like them, right? And just like it's no different, if you can understand, it's no different when if you're young enough to remember, Chinese people, Asian people, they have their own style of dress, traditionally, right? But then they get Americanized. Then they put on a little business suit, right? They start wearing a little ties and stuff, right? They took off their little traditional Chinese attire and start dressing like, the man that's calling the shots right now. Like, so it's no different. That's what they were doing. And that's their same philosophy. They still force everybody to do what they want them to do and live like they do. They did it back then and they're doing it now. That's why the Japanese man, he took off his little gi and put on a dang old Armani suit and a Rolex, right? That's what they do now. The Arab guy stopped walking around with his little, the little, what's that stuff called? The little robes and stuff that they wear. Now he's, wearing pants and, because it says, and everyone should leave his laws, so all the heathen agree according to the commandment of the king. Yet many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judea, and they should follow the strange laws of the land. So it was strange to us, the ways of these people and how they live. It was strange to us. We didn't do that, right? But out of fear and and all that, and necessity, a lot of our people converted and started living like those people. So then that's why, fast forward decades later, when you get to the New Testament, they're being referred to as Gentiles, because that's why you can read in the, I believe it's, well, I know Paul wrote it, so, and that's why he refers to them, say that's why you were in past time Gentiles. You cannot be once a Gentile and now you're not a Gentile, because you born whatever you're born. So if I was born Chinese, I can't be like, well, I want to be Hawaiian today. Like, no, you're Chinese. No matter how many of those little flower things I put around my neck and give me a little Hawaiian shirt and drink Hawaiian punch, I'm still going to be Chinese, right? So that's how it goes. But that's why they refer to them as Gentiles, and say you were Gentiles in the times past. So letting you know that, these are Israelites that we're speaking to. They're not flesh and blood, actual Gentiles. And we see why, as we're reading. So it says, for the king has sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judea, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbath and festival days. So we stop keeping our holidays. We stop doing what God told us to do, right? And that's very similar to what millions and millions and millions of our people getting ready to do, in the coming weeks. Not keep our holiday. We're going to keep their holiday, and we're going to do it gladly, right? So it's no different. How the Bible told us, there's nothing new under the sun, right? So we've been doing this type of stuff for eons. So it says, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbath and festival days. So we stopped keeping the Sabbath, we stopped keeping our holidays, and polluted the sanctuary and holy people. So then we let them take over the house of God and let them do whatever they want, right? And it says set up altars. So they set up their own altars to Zeus and Jupiter and Mars and Athena and all those other people they like to worship. Xena, the warrior princess, probably, who knows, I don't know. They set up their own altars. And groves. Oh, what is groves? Groves is they put groves around. A lot of our people love groves these days, right? People can't wait till Friday night but can go to the groves, right? What was a grove in the ancient BC days? They were strip clubs. That's what they were. They were strip clubs. They put strip clubs in the temple of the Most High God, right? Nowadays we call it a strip club. Atlanta and places like that, they're famous for it, right? A lot of our people love going to the strip club, right? They get they whole check and they cash their check and tell the person, hey, give me all singles, right? Going to the club. So they set up altars in groves, right? Again, back then, because they worship a fertility god, right? And so that fertility god was a wooden pole that the priestess, or what they call the female, I think they call her like a priestess or something, or I don't know, forgot the technical term, but so she danced around the pole, similar to how strippers and nowadays dance around the stripper pole today, but now it's a metal pole that they dance with. But this was a wooden pole that they used to dance, and then the guys will have sex with her. They would do sacrifice, and they would have sex with the lady that's dancing, and that was called divine, right? They'll have these orgy parties and stuff like that, right? So it says set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine flesh and unclean beasts. That's what they did, right? And we talk about this stuff in BC, right? Again, the Bible tells us nothing new is under the sun. So again, we see our people wrapped up in the same type of stuff to this day, right? Going to the strip club and having some nasty, filthy, disease-infested bullet wound, having half-naked woman dance on you, right? And throwing money at her. Then getting involved into these false religions and and false ideologies and stuff, and getting twisted up in that, right? Just eating things that's not good for our body, breaking the dietary laws, right? So we see all these things that we still do to this day, right? And back then our people were basically coached and coerced to doing these things. But now today we do it willingly because we think it's cool. My made my sister laugh. She was had posted something a while back about those water bugs, right? And you know what I'm talking about, water bugs. A lot of people, y'all might call it shrimps, crab, lobster, catfish. They're water bugs, right? That's what they are. So they're insects that live in the water, and people eat it, and they think it's good because they put a little garlic butter on it, right? That's all it is, right? put a little garlic butter on a little insect. I mean, you might as well just go outside to the woods or somewhere. Just grab your little insect. I mean, that's if because that's what it really is. It's the garlic butter, right? Go get you some garlic butter. Go grab your little caterpillar or something, and go ahead and have at it, right? Well, not a caterpillar. Caterpillar, I think, is a clean insect to eat. Even though if you know, you know. I would never ever, but and Lord willing, I won't have to be situations where I have to eat a clean insect, because there's some insects that you can eat, but if you know, you know. But anyway, so that's what you might as well go do. That you might as well go eat bugs, right? You shouldn't make fun of people that eat bugs if you're eating water bugs, right? So it says, and polluted the sanctuary and the holy people, and set up altars and groves and chapels, and sacrificed swine flesh and unclean beasts, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manners of uncleanliness and profanation, and profanation, right? So yeah, like they they, like I said, they just totally gave up on what the Most High told them to do, right? And they just start following the ways of the Greeks, right? And that's what our people do to this day. You tell our people the truth of the Bible, like, hey, we are Israelites. The Most High God wants us to do this. You are a very special person in the eyes of the Most High God. And everybody takes that information and they cast it off to the side, right? And like it's nothing, right? That's why it says this right here in Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 1 verse 7, I believe. Hold on. Chapter 3. Verse 3. It says, a ox knoweth his owner, and a ox knoweth his owner, and a ass know his master's crib. But Israel do not know, and my people do not consider. So let's read this again. It says, a ox know his owner. So now these are two dumb farm animals, right? So God is saying that a ox know his owner. So if you take a ox, a bull or whatever, and put him in a room full of people and everybody calling his name, he's going to be able to identify his owner and go right up to his owner. But this is a dumb farm animal. But he knows who his owner is, right? But Israel don't know who their owner is. We don't know who our God is, because we want to follow all these different religions, and because it feels good and it feels nice, we think it's cool, right? Then it says, a ass know his master's crib. So you can take a donkey and take that donkey 5-10 miles down the road somewhere and leave it and going back home and make you a sandwich. The donkey is going to find its way home, right? But we don't know our way home. We don't know who the hell we are, right? Because we all just blowing with the wind. Whatever is hot, we with it. We with the new hotness, right? So it says, the ox knoweth his owner, and the ass know his master's crib. But Israel, what? But Israel do not know, and my people do not consider. We don't know, and we don't consider that we are the Most High God's people. We don't even care about it, right? We don't care to know these things, because we were so wrapped up in everything else. That's why when we read this right here, and we see a lot of our people just cast it off to the side when the Greeks came in and said, hey, this is what we doing now. And they're like, all right, okay, cool, we're going to do that. But lucky. The Most High saved a remnant called the Maccabees. The Maccabees brothers who would not bow down to that stuff, and they stood up for Israel, right? And that's why we're celebrating this great holiday today, right? Let's move on. So then it says they that they that They should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with the manner of uncleanliness and profanation. Right? So, we just stop doing what we're supposed to do. To the end that they might forget the law and change of all the ordinance. Right? That's the whole plan, to stop us from doing what we used to do. And now we're praying to Zeus. Right? I was talking about this the other day. I'm going to say it again. Because I know my Hispanic and Latino brothers and sisters, they might not like this part, but we got to tell the truth, right? Saint Guadalupe was a nature guide for the Aztecs, right? Was a nature guide, right? A nature or fertility type of guide or something, right? So the Catholics, the Catholicism, Cortez, Hernandez, and all them, Columbus and all them people came over. You know what they did over there? They took over South America, Central America. So they brought Catholicism to those people. So now, I was going over this before, I'm paraphrasing. The King Leopold letters, right? Basically, the manifest destiny thing is like this. When you go to these lands and you meet these native people and they have their guides, don't take their guide away from them. But this kind of, don't take it away, but just say, hey, but this one does this, right? Like, that guy is cool, but this guy does this. So then what happened is, so they took the nature guide, I forgot the original name of that deity that they were worshiping, and they put Guadalupe name on it and say, Guadalupe do the same thing that God does, right? So in actuality, when those people that follow Catholicism and they might send a prayer to Guadalupe, Saint Guadalupe, whatever, right? And they're actually thinking that they're doing something noble and righteous, but you're praying to other spiritual deities that have no connection to the Most High or this Bible at all, but connections to, on the left hand side, to the demonic side of everything, right? And that's what people don't gotta understand. Like, the reason why Catholicism have all those different saints, because it came from the Roman and Greek pantheon. So when they created Christianity to make Christianity be global and popular, they said, well, let's just incorporate all these different deities, but we're just going to change the name and and take the people from the Bible and replace them with these Greek and Roman pantheons. That's what they did, right? So that's why you got Guadalupe actually representing a nature goddess that the Aztecs and the Incas used to worship. But according to Catholicism, it's some type of saint that did some cool stuff, right? I digress. And this is what they do. Psalms 83. So we got to understand it, because it just said, to the end that they might forget the law and change all ordinance, right? And that's what we did. That's why we, you tell somebody today, you got to keep the laws of God. And they be like, what? Keep the laws of God? What's wrong with you? You don't got to keep the laws of God. They act like you is an evil person for saying, hey, what's a good idea? Maybe we should do what God told us to do in the beginning, right? How about that? We've been doing everything else. Wouldn't it be cool if we just start doing what God told us from the start? And they look at you like you're crazy, right? Like, what? Do what God say? What? It's crazy. That's what we do. And this is why. Psalms 83 and verse 2. No, let's start at 1, right? Because y'all got to understand that the Most High God is not no punk. So it says, keep not thou silent, O God, and hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thy enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee lift up the head. So meaning these people that is contrary to the ways of God, and in his ways of doing things, right? They have a beef with God. They have a beef with God, and they have a beef with God's people, right? That's why it says, For lo, thy enemy make a tumult, meaning they have a beef, they have a problem with the Most High God. That's why everything they propagate and push and say, whether it's through their religion, politics, entertainment, whatever, is all against the Most High God, right? And His people, right? I was bringing this up before. It's the reason why whenever McDonald's or Wendy's come out with a new bacon sandwich, there's always one of us in that commercial. There's never a white person advertising that bacon sandwich, because they want us to see us eating that bacon sandwich, because they know the Most High God did not want us to eat pork, and they understand the dynamics between us and our God, and they know whenever we commit sin, we are separated from God, and God does not, and He's not going to move on our behalf. And that allows them to rule over us as long as they've been ruling over us for 500 years, right? So they understand that dynamic. I'm not saying the average person that you walk down the street and see, they know this, but they know this, right? Just like I know this. If I know this, they know this, right? And I'm a nobody. So I'm pretty sure they know this, because it's how they operate. It's the reason why they put, like we was bringing this up, they put, like, even in wine, right? You go to the liquor store, you want to buy you a nice little bottle of wine. You got to see how they filter it and how they curate it to see if they use any pork in it, right? That's why, like, it's a certain type of wine I got to drink, or a certain type of alcohol I would drink, because I got to know if there's gluten in it, what they doing with it, right? And you got to look at these things. That's crazy that we actually, when I go to the grocery store, and it'd be funny because them people, they be looking at me like, this nigger is reading? What he's reading on the back of that? Why is he looking at that so long, right? They say they don't expect us to look and read the ingredients and making sure the stuff is healthy, right? But yeah, you got to do that though, right? Because that's the world we live in. They are very crafty. We're going to see. And it says, for lo, thy enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up thy head. So, meaning they got proud. They got, they start feeling themselves. They feel like, yo, I think we can do something with this God fella and his people, right? So it says, and they said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation. Hold on. What did it say over here? And whosoever would not, it says, and to the end that they might forget the law and change. So hold on, just start up here. That they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all the manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end that they might forget the law and change all ordinance. So what did these nations do? And it's not like they just came and sat down, at the table, but this is a spiritual thing. This is on their spirit. This is what they do collectively. They will fight all day with each other, right? But when it comes to oppressing the black and Hispanic person, they are on one accord for that, right? Because it says this: they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones, right? So they take crafty counsel and figure out, how could we further oppress these black and Hispanic people? What could we do, right? I got my foot on their neck. I'm really just putting my foot down, but how can I really just give it to them more? What can I do more, right? Ooh, let's cut EBT. Ooh, let's cut Section A. Ooh, let's cut down healthcare. It says, they take crafty counsel against thy people and consult against thy hidden ones. And who are the hidden ones? The Israelites. Why are we the hidden ones? Because God protect us, right? That's where our protection comes from the Most High. So we are the hidden ones. So it says, they said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, so that the name of Israel may be in no more remembrance. This is our dear brother David, King David, writing this prophecy of how these nations and this, this psalm, of how they feel about us, right? And we can see their idea of, and we see through their laws and their politics how that manifests, because we can read that how they manifest that is by passing certain laws saying that you can't do this, you can't do that. So then we follow that. So then what happens when we follow that? It says they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable of all matter and uncleanness and profanation, to the end that they might forget the law and change all ordinance. That is powerful, because that's what we're doing. That's why we don't know who we are to this day, right? We don't know. You have people calling themselves everything. You ask a black person, you ask 10 black people, what's your nationality? You're going to get 10 different answers, because we don't know, right? And why we don't know? They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones and said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation. So we're not even a nation no more, because we don't know who we are. We don't call ourselves a nation. We assimilated to this place, right? We call ourselves an African American, right? What is that? You can't be, that is an oxymoron to be an African American, right? It's crazy. But that's what we call ourselves. Then it says, they said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel be no more in remembrance, for they have consulted together with one consent. So all these nations, again, they can fight all day long about to blow up the whole world in World War III. But one thing they do agree on, for they have consulted together with one consent, that they are confederate against thee. Well, no matter what's going on, they still against us, right? Russia and Ukraine, we know what's going on over there. They're fighting everybody, fighting each other. So when the war first kicked off and the civilians was trying to get up out of there, they would not let the black people leave, right? They were trying to send the black people to the front lines to fight, and they were letting the white Ukrainians leave, right? That's what they were doing, right? So, for they have consulted together with one consent, they are confederate against thee. So even those people over there, way over there, they are confederate against thee, right? So that's what we're dealing with. Then it says and then it's going to list the people that's against us, right? And we know how, for the most part, if you took culinary arts and stuff for a hot second, they tell you the first ingredient is usually the main ingredient, or the one that's the most important, right? The tabernacle of Edom, and the Ishmaelites, and Moab, and the Hagarenes, and Gabal, and Ammon, and Amalek, and the Philistines, and with the habitation of Tyre, Ashur also is joined with them. They hope the children of Lot, Shalah, do unto them as unto the Midianites, as to Sarah, and as to Jabin at the brook of Christian, right? So all these different nations are against us, right? And these are the ancient biblical names, right? Just see who they are today, right? Edom, so-called Caucasian, white man, European, whatever you want to call them. Ishmaelites, so-called Arabs. So if you're familiar with history, we know, if you're familiar with history and you're familiar with the Bible, Edom is the main antagonist to the Israelites throughout this whole Bible. They are the main enemy throughout Israel. They are a reoccurring villain, right? Ishmael, we know what was going on with the Ishmaelites. The Arab slave trade, they took us and sold us all around the world through the Arab slave trade. That's how we got to the other side of the world, right? Moab is the Chinese. We were enslaved to the Chinese. A lot of people don't know. We helped build the Great Wall of China under the Qin dynasty. We were enslaved to the Qin dynasty, right? So we helped build that stuff, right? I got a friend now who great grandparents like dark like me, but they got these little Chinese eyes, right? Because we were in captivity to the Qin dynasty for a while, right? And until the Mongolians came and did their thing, right? So in this history, right, we gotta understand this stuff. So and it says in the Hagarenes, I believe the Hagarenes are, I believe, an African nation, I believe, or Arab nation. And Gibal is an Arab nation. So I think the Hagarenes is an African nation, and Gabal I know is an Arab nation. And Ammon is the ancient Japanese. So the Japanese also, right? Had a hand in our downfall. The Amalek is, the little guy with the little curly stuff hanging from the side. They got the little curls right there, and they be rocking like they got a dang old mental problem. They do this a lot, right? And they say, they put the little stuff, the little saucer on that. That's Amalek, right? The worst of the worst. So yeah, these are the people that, so all the nations, had a hand in our downfall at one point in time of another, right? Because it says, they had taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones, right? Because that's what they do. It says, jump down to 5. For they have consulted together with one consent, they are confederate against thee. So these nations, when they come together at their little UN and stuff like that, they make plans and come together to further oppress us, right? That's what they do. Back over here. Hold on, let's get wisdom real quick. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 10 real quick. Where is it? Alright, chapter 10, verse 5. And it says, moreover, the nations in their wicked conspiracy being confounded, right? So, and that's what God is going to do. Although these nations come against us in a conspiracy to take us down, they're going to be confounded in that last day, right? Because they're going to see who God is really for and who God is with. It says, moreover, the nations in their wicked conspiracy being confounded, she found out their righteousness and to preserve him blameless unto God, and kept him strong against his tender compassion towards his son, right? So, and that's what happened. God protect us, and they're gonna see the protection that we got when they come against us. They're gonna see that we got a Most High God that really fights for us, right? They're gonna see that they have no power in that day, right? Everything their vain imaginations will be cast down, like it tells us, right? So back over here. So back to Maccabees, right? So it says, first Maccabees 1 and 49. So to the end that they might forget the law and change all ordinance, whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said, should die. So they were killing us if we were not keeping what the Greeks told us to do. So again, by the time you get to the New Testament and you see the epistles and the apostles, epistles going out to these different Greek and Roman provinces addressing certain churches, that's because there were Israelites there, but they were, the people that was living in Judea, since they were close to the temple and they felt like they were keeping the law, they treated the people that live in the Greeks in Greece and Rome, in that province, they treat them different. Just like this, maybe y'all can understand this. It's just like growing up, and maybe still to this day, people that live up north look at people differently that live down south, right? Some people tend to look at the people down south to be a little more simpler, right? And a little more, just a little more just a little more simpler, right? Than versus some people up north. That's how some people may look at it, right? So if you can understand that, then you can understand in the New Testament when they will refer to the Israelites as Gentiles and how they treat them different because they looked at them different because where they live and the stuff that they were doing, right? So in a selfless manner wrote he to his whole kingdom and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Judea to sacrifice city by city. So he put up this then he put people over these different cities to make sure that his law was being enforced, right? So then it says, then many of the people were gathered unto him, were gathered unto them, to with everyone that forsook the law, so they committed evil in the land. So then our people start, committing evil by following the ways of these people. So you gotta understand that, right? The Most High God is saying, whenever we're not keeping the laws of God and we're doing what the other nations is doing, He's calling it evil, right? And so we think evil is like, doing something devilish and harmful to somebody, and this, no, evil could be as simple as just not doing the opposite of whatever God said. That's evil, right? So evil is not something like spooky ooky in the third dimension, or like Jeffrey Dahmer type stuff. No, evil is just simple as just not doing what God said to do, right? So he called it evil, right? And it says, then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit everyone forsook the law, and so they commit evil in the land. So we forsook the law, stop keeping the law. So that becomes evil, right? But we have a institution called Christianity that have a few buildings set up everywhere, and they tell people don't keep the law. But we just read right here, when we don't keep the law and we do anything else but keeping the law, it brings us to evil, right? We got to understand that. Then it says, and drove the Israelites into a secret place, even wherever they could flee for succor. Now even the 15th day of the month of Cashew, which is this month, in the 140 and 50th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar and built altars throughout the city of Judea on every side. So they set up their little false religious institutions all over our city. They put pork on the altar. They brought Zeus, crusty, nasty, stinky, funky, hairy back butt up in our temple to worship. They put a Zeus up in there, right? So that's what the abomination of desolation and all that stuff was going on, right? So that's what was going on. So that's why, let's get back over here. Boom, bow, bang, back to chapter 4. That's why our dear brother Judas had to do this. So he chose priests of blameless conversation, such as have pleasure in the law, who cleanse the sanctuary and bear out the defiled stones unto an unclean place. Because that was all that stuff that was going on there, right? So that's why he had to set up men to, rededicate the temple and all that stuff, because like we just read, all these things was going on, right? And we have to, rededicate it. And it says, they thought it was best to pull it down, lest it should be a reproach to them, because the heathen had defiled it. Wherefore they pulled it down. So they say, you know what, this altar, let's throw the whole altar out, because I don't want to be reminded of them putting pork and hippopotamus and and maybe a lion head on an altar, a guy. I don't have to look at this and see that, right? So just get rid of it total, and just take it all out, right? And that's what you got to do sometimes. Sometimes when you're in a bad situation, like they tell drug addicts, right? When a person is recovering from addiction, they tell them that they have to change their environment, right? That's the first thing you tell a recovering drug addict. You have to change your environment. So they have to get rid of this altar because it will remind them of the profaneness and the stuff that took place in the temple. So they got it out of there, right? So then it says, hold on, let's get this real quick. Boom. Look at Colossians. One second. That's what I want. I figured that. 3. Colossians 3 and 5. So again, too, getting back to on the spiritual side of it. So it says, they thought it best to pull it down. It should be a reproach to them because the heathen had defiled it. Wherefore they pulled it down. So, like again, just like how a recovering addict will have to isolate themselves from their environment so they won't be tempted to go back to doing drugs. Or if you in a situation and you're hanging around bad people or just whatever the case may be, sometimes to recover from that incident you have to remove yourself, right? So you can further recover, right? And get back on track. So sometimes, like when you live in a certain type of lifestyle and you want to try to recover from it, you have to try to remove yourself from it, right? That's why it says this over here, Colossians 3 and 5. Mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate infection, evil consequence, and covetousness, which is adultery. Which things shake the wrath of God coming from the children of disobedience. So, like I said, so just like how these brothers is cleaning the temple and removing all the defiled stones and remembering, and we got to remember our body is also a temple, and we want to try to remove certain things that is keep us separated from the Most High God, right? That can bring us closer to the Most High God. So we want to remove those certain elements, right? Because what did Christ say? Christ said it's better to enter into the kingdom with one eye than to lose your soul having both eyes. Of course I'm paraphrasing, right? It's better to enter into the kingdom having no legs than and then burning forever having being fully intact, right? So you got to be willing to sacrifice something, because people think this is what people think. This is what typically people think. Jesus come back, right? Here comes Jesus. Everybody, happy Jesus come back. The choir is singing, the band is playing, music is bumping, everybody dancing because here comes Jesus. And Jesus coming to fix everything. Like, hey, how you doing, little Timmy? Hey, rub you on the head and he touch you, now you're fixed and everything great. That's what people thinking Jesus coming to do. That's not what he's coming to do, right? He's coming to unalive billions, right? That's what he's coming to do. He's coming to judge the world. That's what he's coming to do. He's coming to destroy this place, right? And the best bet is to hope that we're not on the side of destruction. That's what our hope is, right? So you got to understand that. So that's why it says it's better to, that's why it says it's better for you to, enter into the heaven with no eyes or no limbs, right? And then to lose your soul, right? And you gotta understand that. So, just on the spiritual side. So it says, and laid up the stones in the mountains of the temple in a convenient place until there should come a prophet to show what should be done with them. Then they took hold the stones according to the law and built a new altar according to the former, and made up the sanctuary and the things that were within the temple hollow courts. They made also new holy vessels, and unto the temple they brought the candlestick, an altar of burnt offerings, and incense of the table. And upon the altar they burnt incense, and the lamps that were upon the candlesticks they lightened, and they that might light in the temple. Furthermore, they set the loaves upon the table, and spread out the fowls, and finished all the works which they had begun to make. And now the 25 day of the ninth month, which is called the month of Cashew, which is the month that we are in now. And it says, in the 148th year, they rose up bedtime in the morning, and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the altar of burnt offerings, which they had made. And look at what time, what day the heathen had profaned it, and even that was dedicated with song and sufferings and harps and cymbals. So, all right, now if you're familiar, right, we read earlier. This happened because, again, we reading stuff that happened over years. It's not like stuff that's been happening over a course of weeks or days or months. This is battles and fights and wars that have been taking place over years. So when we first start off in the story, the Greeks come in, they bum rush the whole joint, and they did that on December 25th. So, and they jacked up the temple. So just so happened the day that we end up getting the temple back and fixing things back up again, just so happened to be on December 25th, right? So that's what they was mentioning right there. And then so yeah, right. So then that's why we keep it during this time of the month. Then it says then all the people fell upon their faces and worshiping and praised the God of heaven, and had given them a good success, and they so kept the dedication of the altar 8 days, and offered burnt offerings with gladness and sacrifice of deliverance and praise. And they decked also the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold, and even with shields, right? Shields, that's what these are, shields, not stars. These are shields, right? Even science class will tell you that a star is a ball of light, a ball of gas, right? But that's neither here or there, right? With shields, right? Then it says, in the gates, in the chambers, they renewed and hanged doors upon them, and thus was a great gladness among the people, for that the reproach of the heathen was put away. So God gave us peace. He gave us time to rebuild the temple, set up Jerusalem, and that's why, again, when you read the New Testament, majority of the Jews that was living in Judea, we were all centered mainly in Jerusalem. And that's why too, even though like when you hear them in the city of Samaria and Christ is talking to the Samaritan woman, and and that's why too, it's like the language kind of, you can tell, when Christ is talking, basically try-begging on a Samaritan lady. So you can see, like, even though Samaria is a city in Israel, but the way how the Jews that live in Judea and Jerusalem, how they felt about the Jews outside of Jerusalem, they looked at them as just everybody else. That's why when Christ was talking to the woman at the well, he, spoke with her in the manner that he spoke with her in, because, they were still, tribe banging, right? Because they look at the northern kingdom of the people that was, following the Greeks as they're no longer Israelites anymore. They just, they heathens, right? So thus was there very great gladness among the people, for that was reproach of the heathen was put away. Because now that, there's no more Greeks coming to mess with them, right? They're able to live their life, and be cool, right? Then it says, moreover, Judas and his brethren with the whole congregation of Israel ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their season from year to year. So that's why we do it to this day. We can read in the book of John, Christ also kept the feast of dedication. And it says, from year to year, by the space of 8 days, from the 25th day of the month of Cashew, with myrrh and gladness. At the time also they built up Mount Zion with high walls and strong towers round about, lest the Gentiles should come and tread it down. And they had, as they had before. And they set there a garrison to keep fortified Basharah, to preserve it, that the people might have a defense against Idumea, right? So these people are caught, and that's why too, like, I mean, like, they took the Apocrypha out, right? And if you know that Idumea is a Latin way of saying Edom, right? And if you know that Edom is I said this before, Edom is the main protagonist of the Israelites. And if you know that they were fighting the Greeks and the Romans, and if you know, then he just referred to them as Idumea. And this is just a cut to those who be trying to make the argument that these people are not Edom. But we can see right here that we know who they're fighting. We've been reading it the whole time. And we can see that they're being referred to as Edom. So yes, those people are the Edomites, right? History proves it, archaeology proves it, a lot of things prove it, right? So I just thought that was just like something to point out. Let's get really, really quick. Let's get a chapter, 2 Maccabees chapter 3, real quick. Yeah, 2 Maccabees chapter 3. So, and we gotta understand, we got a God that fight for us, man. It's crazy, right? We have a super, for lack of better terms, a supernatural, all-powerful, all-knowing being that's on our side. We got to understand that. Now when the holy city was inhabited with all the place of the law were kept very well because of the goodness of Ananias, the high priest, and his hatred for wickedness, right? So we got it all running, everything's up and up, temple, every right, doing our thing. It came to pass that even the kings themselves did honor the place and magnify the temple with their best gifts. So then the people, the surrounding kings around us, they was actually, giving us money and paying tribute, right, like they oughta, right? It much so that Seleucus, the king of Asia, his own revenue bear all the costs of the belongings and the service of the sacrifices. But one Simon of the tribe of Benjamin, who was made governor of the temple, fell out of the high priest about disorder of the city. And when he could not overcome Ananias, he got him to Epaminondas, the son of Tartarises, who then was the governor of Caesarea in Phoenice, and told him that the treasure of Jerusalem was full of infinite sums of money. So dude like snitching and stuff, right? Dude like, hey, look, in the temple in Jerusalem, they got like so much money, them niggas don't know what to do with it, to tell you the truth. They got so much money, right? We need to go over there and we need to get that from them, right? They over there eating good over there, right? I don't like what the dude say on that movie, Belly. I don't like that, right? So, they like, yeah. So then, and now when Antipater came to the king and had sued him of the money thereof, and told the king out of Helios, his treasurer, and sent him with the commandment to bring him the foresaid money. So he sent this man to Jerusalem, like, hey, go get that money. They got how much money over there? Go get that money from them people over there. Them Negroes don't know what to do with that money. Go get that money, right? So it says, so sent forth Heliodorus, took his journey under the color of visiting the cities of Silos, Syria, and Phoenice, but indeed to fulfill the king's purpose. So he came on the guys like, hey, I'm just touring. We ain't know nothing. We just going around touring, checking out the cities and stuff, right? But gingerly making his way down to Jerusalem if we can get that money. Like what did Denzel say in in Training Day? Give me that money, Jake. I need that money, Jake. Right? So that's what he's gonna be on. You're gonna see, right? So that was my Denzel voice. So then it's and when he come to Jerusalem and had been courteously received with the high priest of the city, he told him what intelligence was given of the money, and declared thereof. He came and asked if their things were so indeed. And when the high priest told him that there was such money laid up for relief of the widows and the fatherless. So dude came on that gangster stuff like, look, yo, we know y'all got that money up in there, right? We know how much money you got. You know what I'm saying? We already know. What's the name? Jason already told us what's going on, right? So, and dude like, all right, yeah, we do got, the money, but, that's like what we use for the poor, the homeless, the widows, the single parent homes and stuff like that. That's how we support the poor, right? And people that's, have a hard time supporting themselves, right? That's what he's trying to lay down to the man, right? So what happened with that? And it says, and that some of it belonged to Hyrcanus, the son of Tiberius, a man of great dignity, and not as that wicked Simon had misinformed. And some thereof in all ways was 400 talents of silver and 200 gold, and that it was altogether impossible that much wrong should be done unto them that had committed to the holiness of the place, and to the majesty and inviolable sanctuary of the temple, honored over all the world. So dude hit him with a man robbed God, right? And this dude like, yeah, we about to rob God. That's what we on, right? We came here to rob God. That's why we came, right? So he's trying to plead to the humanity of this official, but you got to know who we're dealing with here. We're dealing with Esau. Esau has no humanity. His humanity left from the day he said wah 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 yeah, came into the earth, right? That's when his humanity left. You gotta understand that. So he says, but Heliodorus, because of the king give him, said that in any wise it must be brought unto to the king's treasure. So he like, look, I'm just following orders, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm just doing what the king told me. I ain't, I get all that, because I'm just doing what the king told me. I'm just following orders, right? That's all he doing. And it says, so at that day which he appointed, he entered in order this matter, wherefore there was no small agony there was no small agony throughout the whole city. Meaning the people lost their mind. They got, it was horrible. Like, this guy coming to rob the temple of the Most High God. We just set this stuff up. We just got this thing back up and running and looking all cool and doing all this great stuff, right? Now here comes this devil, because they see that we doing good, and they want to come and rob us, right? Just like about 40, 50 years right after slavery, black people was creating some of the first self-made millionaires in America, right? We were building very efficient cities about less than 40, 20 years, whatever, right after slavery, right when we left the plantation. We had Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had, what's that place? Seneca Village. What's the other place? Rosewood. All this stuff, right? Harlem, Chicago, all these places we was building, right? Even though some places came a little later, but you get the point. The point is, we was doing great things, right? And here come these people. What they do with Tulsa, Oklahoma, they burnt it down. What they do with Seneca Village, didn't they flood it out? Now it's a lake or something like that now, right? There's so many underground, there's so many underwater cities that we created in America. When you look on Google Maps, there are lakes now, right? Because they was hating on us because we was doing our thing, right? So what happened? It says, boom. So it says, so it says, but the priest, boom, boom, boom. So it says, so the day which he appointed, he entered in to order this matter. There were no small agony throughout the whole city. Like I said, so the people was upset, agony, because our temple's getting robbed and broken into. And it says the priests prostrating themselves before the altar in their priest vestments, called unto heaven upon him that made the law concerning things given to kept, that they should safely be preserved, for as committed them to be kept. Then also had looked the high priest in the face, it should, and would have wounded his heart for his contents and the changing, right? So it says, in the changing of his color. So meaning, the priest was like terrified, right? Let's read it again. It says, yeah, the high priest was terrified, because you see these soldiers and these officials in there, they coming in the temple, they want to steal everything and say, hey, yo, we need that money, yo. You know what I'm saying? We don't care what you talking about. Give me the money, man. They came in like a meth addict, trying to beg their parents for the money. Give me the money, man. Just need the money, man. Give me the money, man. So the priest was like terrified, right? So let's see how we have a God that fight for us, right? We have a very powerful God. We have the only true living God, right? So this what happens. For the man was so compassed with fear and horror of the body, that it was manifest to them that look upon him, that sorrow, and he had now in his heart. Others ran flocking out of their houses to the general's supplication, because of the place was like to come to a contempt. And the women girded with sackcloth under their breasts, abound in the streets. And the virgins that were kept and ran, some to the gates and some to the walls, and others looked out of the windows, and all holding their hands towards the heaven and made supplication. So meaning the whole neighborhood, everybody was, terrified, and they was scared, and they was praying to God for help. So they like, oh shoot, these people are back, and they about to do, kill everybody, right? So it says, then it would have pity a man to see the falling down of the multitude of all sorts, and the fear of the high priest being such in agony, then called upon the mighty Lord to keep the things committed to trust and safe and sure for those that had committed them. Nevertheless, Heliodorus executed that which was the decree, right? So, they came out there trying to, so he's like we're gonna take these things. Look, I know you say this is for the poor. You need this stuff to help the single parent households, the widows, and I get all that. But you know what? We're gonna take it anyway. You asked the question, will a man rob God? You know what? You're damn right we will. All right, that's what we're doing. We robbing God right now. That's what we're doing, right? So then, what happened? So then, nevertheless, Heliodorus execute what was decreed. Now as he was there present himself with the guard about the treasure, the Lord of spirits and the Prince of all power caused a great apparition. Oh, ooh, Most High God. What did it say? Because we got to understand what type of power this man has, right? The type of God we serve. What happened? So the guy went into there and said, you know what? Forget what you're talking about, priests. Probably muffed him aside the head too. Probably kicked him, right? We taking the stuff anyway. We don't give a damn what you say. We taking the stuff anyway. But what happened? How did the Most High God move? Because the Most High God don't fight fair. You got to understand. The Bible says God will not meet you like a man. Meaning he ain't gonna fight you head up, right? God is coming with the thumb to the eye, like boom. He's gonna take your nose and try to pull it back. He might throw some dirt in your eye. Might kick you right between the legs. He ain't fighting fair with you, right? That's not how this works. What did he do to these people? It says, Now as he was there, present himself with a guard about the treasure, the Lord of spirits and the Prince of all power caused a great apparition. What is that? That's like a spirit, That's some people might call it a ghost or, a demon or, this is a spirit, right? What did he do? It says, caused a great apparition so that all that presumed to come in with him were astonished at the power of God. So now these people that's with Heliodorus, they can see these spirits. They can see this demon, this spirit in a room. So they like, whoa, God is like, he really that dude. God is really him, right? We should probably not be doing this right now. So so it says, and now as he was there present himself with the guard about the treasury, the Lord of spirits and the Prince of all power caused a great apparition, so that all that presumed to come in with him were astonished at the power of God, and fainted, and were sore afraid. So they were terrified to even step inside to do it. The Most High put this fear of God in these people. They didn't even want to come in the room. Like, oh, shit, something. We ain't going in there, right? We ain't doing that. And then what it say? They fell to the ground and fainted, and were sore afraid. Meaning they was terrified. Some just passed out from fear. Some of them just terrified. We ain't doing it. It's just we see them spirits in there. We see them things in there, right? And it says, For there appeared unto them a horse with a terrible rider upon him, and adorned with very fair covering, and ran fiercely, and smote at Heliodorus with his feet. So now Heliodorus, now you gotta understand this, right? So this is Heliodorus don't see what his soldiers and everybody else is seeing. So they see, as they in the room, they see in the spirit world these demons attacking Heliodorus, right? So, but now how it's playing out in the 3D world, in the world that we in, just see how it's appearing, how it's playing out, right? So, so then, moreover, 2 other young men appeared before him, notable in strength, excellent in beauty, and comely in apparel, who stood before him on either side, and scourged him continually. So now these other 2 spirits appeared on this Heliodorus guy, and they just, just beating him up, right? But again, this is in the spirit world, right? But the soldiers that came with him, they can see these spirits on Heliodorus and see this stuff happen, right? So it says, and scourged him continually, and gave him many sore stripes. And Heliodorus fell suddenly on the ground, and was compassed with great darkness. But they that were with him took him up, and put him into the litter. So now he just passed out, right? He just fainted while he's in there. He just passed out. But the soldiers that's with him, they see the spirits that's attacking them spiritually. But in our 3D world and how it plays out, he's in there, he's talking this stuff, he's talking like the big man, and then he just passed out and fainted. Just got taken, just dropped, right? So, and that's the thing, because people don't understand, like, these, the Most High God got angels, and and these spirits that run things, right? Let's get this real quick. Just understand, because a lot of people think that the devil and these demons and stuff, whatever you want to call it, that they just working rogue. You know what I'm saying? They just doing whatever they want to do. But you don't understand that how this thing works. They all work for the same company, right? Let's understand this real quick. Let's get 1 Samuel. Right? You gotta see this real quick. Look at 1 Samuel 16 real quick. First Samuel 16 and 14. And it says, But the Spirit of the Lord depart from Saul, and an evil spirit from who? Hold on. Let me read it right. Let me make sure my glasses is good. But the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. Right? See, how many people knew that the Most High God can send an evil spirit to trouble you? Right? The same way how we just read about our dear friend Heliodorus had an evil spirit come and visit him to make him pass out in front of everybody when he was in the middle of talking his big stuff about how he's going to rob the temple and take everything out, right? So it says, But the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. So God took his natural, loving, kind spirit that he had for Saul away. Then sent the evil spirit to torment Saul. We know that, if you're familiar with the story of Saul, Saul spent the rest of his days being a very wretched, mentally deprived man, right? And vengeful man, right? And envious, right? So let's get Proverbs 17 real quick. Proverbs 17 and 11. So Proverbs 17 and 11 says this: a evil man seek only rebellion. Therefore, a cruel messenger shall be sent against him. So what happened to our dear friend Heliodorus? There was a cruel messenger that was sent to him, because what happened? It says, for there appeared unto them a horse with terrible rider upon him, and adorned with a very covering, and he ran fiercely, and he smote at Heliodorus with his feet. So, and isn't that interesting? So this demon was attacking his feet, and as we continue to read, this man passes out. Cause have you ever saw somebody faint? It's like their legs just collapse underneath them. Their legs just fall. It's like their bones that's in their legs just give out, just momentarily disappear. They have no bone structure in their legs. They just collapse on themselves, right? So it's very interesting that this demon is attacking him on his feet. He's riding around in his chariot and he's attacking him on his feet, right? So then it says, and smote at Heliodorus with his feet, and it seemed that he that sat upon the horse had completed harness of gold, right? So back over here, it says, it says, an evil man see only rebellion. Therefore, a cruel messenger shall be sent against him. So when you look up that word in the Hebrew, messenger, that word says angel, right? Or, so, and God has, from our point of view, we'll call them evil angels or demons. So God has these, these angels that he sent to do certain things, whenever he need them to, right? Let's get Wisdom of Solomon, right? Let's get Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 17, right? Chapter 17. 17 and verse 3. So it says, For a while they supposed to lie, hid their secret sin. They were scattered under the dark veil of forgetfulness, and being horrible, astonished, and terrible with strange aberrations. So, like I said, so God would send these demons or spirits on you and have you, to a point where you can't sleep, or you feel like you're seeing these little demons or spiritual stuff. So it says for a while they supposed to lie hid in their secret sins. So when you think you just getting away with stuff and you just everything you doing is cool, God sends spirits on you. That's why some people have a hard time sleeping. Some people have a hard time just relaxing and just because there's spirits on them, right? And it says for a while they supposed to lie hid in their secret sin. They were shattered under a dark veil of forgetfulness, being horrible, astonished, and terrible with the strange aberration. So when that evil spirit start messing with you, you're like, oh shoot, why is this thing is in my room? Why I'm having these nightmares? You're not considering your sinful life and the things that you have been doing that's counter to what the Most High wants you to do, and it's the reason why he's trying to scare you straight. You know what I'm saying? You're not considering these things, right? That's why it says, for they, for a while they supposed to lie hid in their secret sins, because you think, nobody knows what I'm doing, it's a secret, nobody knows. I'm just doing this stuff, getting away with this. That's what happens. But God sees everything, right? That's what goes down, right? And you got to remember, it's not what you do when people are watching. It's what you do when people are not watching, right? Got to understand that. So back over here. Let's get Job 13. Chapter 4. Let's get the book of Job, chapter 4. We got to understand, because people don't believe that the Most High God and who we call the spiritual demon Satan, that they work for the same thing. Because we got to understand that we just read how God sent these spirits on people, right? And just get this one more time. This is the book of Job, chapter 4, verse 13. And thoughts from the vision of the night. So this is talking about nightmares. When people go to sleep, they have terrible dreams. It says, the thought from the vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth on men, fear come upon me, trembling made with all my bones to shake. Right? So we all have those terrible dreams, or you feel like something in a room with you, right? So Job is describing the same thing. Then the spirit passed before my face, the hair of my flesh stood up. We all had that feeling, right? Where you feel like it's that spirit come in the room with you, your hairs start tingling, right? This is what Job describing, right? So the Most High God can send these spirits and to scare you straight, or keep you safe. You know what I'm saying? So it all depends, right? So it says, the spirit passed before my face, the hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern the form thereof. The image was before me, before my eyes. There was silence, and I heard a voice saying. So sometimes some people say when they experience these aberrations in their rooms, or they feel what they call sleep paralysis and they can't move and stuff, right? Sometimes people will say that even though they can't move or whatever, but they will see like a dark figure or a dark shadowy figure in a room that they can't really fully make out sometimes. That's what Job is talking about. And these are all spirits that the Most High used to scare us straight, for the lack of better terms, right? So let's get Judges 23, right? Matter of fact, let's read a little more. Then it says, for there appeared unto them horses with terrible riders upon them, and adorned with a fiery covering, and he ran fiercely, and smote at Heliolus with his feet, and it seems that he that sat upon the horse had completed harness of gold. Right? So let's get Judges real quick. Judges chapter 9. And 23. So then God sent an evil spirit. Oh my God. Why is God sending these evil spirits? See, because we got to understand Christianity is a lie, right? To think that the devil and he has his angels and they do whatever the hell they want, and they like, yeah, we're the devil or demons, we're going to do what the hell we want. And think that God cannot stop the devil and do anything, that is freaking crazy to believe that stuff. That is actually Greek and Roman mythology that you're believing in. If you think there's a devil that does whatever he wants and he has rogue angels and they just go around just doing whatever they want against God, and God can't stop them, he's like, oh my God, the devil's out of control, what are we going to do, man? Then you're believing in Greek mythology and Roman mythology, because that stuff takes place over there, not in the Bible. There's no such thing as God's creation not following and doing whatever he wants them to do. That's not how this works. Okay? So, what is that? Then God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the man of Shemek, and the man of Shemek dealt treacherously with Abimelech. So God can send these evil spirits on people to accomplish whatever goal that He wants to be done. Right. So here He sent this spirit on uh, Heli, Heliodorus, and it made him faint. But Helio didn't see the spirits, but his soldiers saw it, and they knew what was going on. So, and they can contest to that and be like, you know what, we ain't messing with these people. They got a God that really get down, and we can't do anything with that, right? So it says, moreover, two other young men appeared before him, notable in strength, excellent in beauty, and comely in appearance, who stood before him either side, and scourged him continually, and gave him many sore stripes. So again, this is all taking place in the spirit world, but looking at it in the 3D world, we just see this man, like I said, just talking big stuff. Then he passes out, he collapses on himself, he falls down, and the soldiers have to pick him up. Right? Then it says, and Heliodorus fell suddenly unto the ground, and was compassed with great darkness. But they that were with him took him up, and put him into a litter. Thus him that lately come with the great train, and with all his guard unto, and said the treasure, they carry out, being unable to help himself with the weapons in a majesty, they acknowledge the power of God. Let me read it right. Thus him that lately came with a great train, and with all his guard unto the said treasure, they carry out, being unable to help himself with his weapons, and manifestly they acknowledge the power of God. So they understood, like, look, we came here to rob them, and we're not even able to move. We can't even move our members of our body to even take the stuff out of here. We can't take this. I can't even move it. Right? They like, dang, this has got to be God up in there, because like we came here to rob this place, and we're unable to do it because we can't even move. Right? And they understood what it says. It says, thus him that greatly came with a great train, and with all the guard unto into the said treasury, they cried out, being unable to help himself with his weapons, and his manifested, they acknowledged the power of God. So understanding that no matter how many soldiers he had, the weapons, all the stuff he had, he couldn't help himself. Once he got into the grips of God, there's nothing you can do. That's why the Bible says it's a terrible thing to fall in the hands of the Lord, right? Because he can do whatever he wants to you. And we see what he did to these people, right? They didn't leave not with one red cent out of that temple, right? They was lucky to escape with their life, right? And it says, For he by the hand of God had cast down, and lay speechless, without all hope of life. But they praised the Lord that had miraculously honored his own place. For the temple, which a little afore was full with fear and trouble, when the Almighty appeared, was filled with joy and gladness. So God, he protected his people, because he saw that the people were, in fear. And the priests and stuff, half the priests done ran up out of there. They done got up out of there, So they looking like, oh, shit, we just built this temple back. We just rededicated. Like, here these people come, they about to destroy it again. But the Most High didn't let it happen, right? Because he put the fear of God in those people. Let them know that we are the Israelites, and they can't mess with us, right? And it says, Then the straightway, certain of the Heliodorus friends prayed Ananias, that was Ananias, that he would call upon the Most High to grant him his life, who lay ready to give up the ghost. So they like, look, Ananias, my bad. We was tripping. We shouldn't have came into the temple trying to steal everything and acting like it was cool. Can you please pray to God and have him not kill us? Because, this ain't cool. What's the guy name? Heliodorus. The man is about to die, right? The man needs medical attention. We don't know what to do. We're back in the BC days. You know what I'm saying? We don't got no MRI machine. We need help. Can you tell God to not do this, please? Right? That's where they at with it. So they came there all proud with they soldiers, they weapons, they army, thinking they just about to walk up into the temple and just take our stuff, but not knowing we got a God that fight for us, and he don't fight fair, right? He put a little crap up in him, like the people that, what I'm saying, and the people that just all of a sudden they just lock up real quick, like, yeah, and they just fall down, right? That's what God did to the man. Locked them up real quick. You know what I'm saying? Spiritually bind them real quick. You know what I'm saying? Like hit them with the spiritual lasso. Just tie them up real quick. Have them fall down. Let's go. And it says, but they praised the Lord that had miraculously honored his own place, for the temple which a little for was full of fear and trouble when the Almighty Lord appeared and filled with joy and gladness. So the people was like, look, cause they saw that day how the Most High God worked. Cause to them, they thought it was over with. They thought it was curtains. It said curtains. It says the stairways, certain of Heliodorus friends prayed Ananias that he would call upon the Most High to grant him his life, who lay ready to give up the ghost. So this begging Ananias to pray to God to save Helio's life. So it says, so the high priest suspecting lest the king should misconceive that some treacherous had been done to Heliodorus by the Jews. So he's like, damn it. Cause we gotta make it, understand it, cause we know how it is. So check it out. So the king sends his men to go rob the joint, technically, right? For the lack of better terms, the king sent this guy to go get the money from the treasure. But then the guy that go get the money from the treasure is dead, right? So then the king like, hold on, you just killed the king's messenger, so that's gonna bring trouble down on the land. So then Ananias like, damn, shoot, we can't just have this man die in Jerusalem, because if he die in Jerusalem, then the king gonna be looking at it like, okay, I sent them down there to get something, and y'all people killed him. So that's gonna be a potential whole nother war, right? So what happened? So the high priest, suspecting lest the king should misconceive that some treachery had been done to Heliodorus by the Jews, offering a sacrifice for the health of the man. So he's like, all right, okay, let me pray for the man. I could give up a sacrifice for his health, right? Now as the high priest was making a atonement, the same young man in the same clothing appeared and stood beside Heliodorus, saying, give Ananias the high priest a great thanks, as much as for his sake the Lord have gained thee life. So the angels, these spirits that was, attacking him beforehand, that caused him to faint and pass out as we were reading, those same spirits appeared back to him, but this time, I'm trying to, because I don't want to be all spooky, but basically, to make it plain, the spirit came on him to give him the unction to be like, to be apologetic, to be like, you know what, I'm an asshole. I was bogus. I shouldn't came over here like that. I shouldn't came over here, doing these things. I need to give respect. I need to. Matter of fact, I'm gonna give respect to the Most High God right now. Matter of fact, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna thank you, Ananias, because I don't know what I was doing. I came over here tripping. I almost died. You know what I'm saying? I'm a changed man, right? He says, and now the high priest was making a atonement. The same young man in the same clothing appeared and stood beside Heliodorus, saying, "Give Ananias the high priest great thanks, and much as for his sake, the Lord has granted thee life." So he's like, look, the Lord was going to kill you, but Ananias prayed for you, and the Lord said, you know what? All right, we'll let the little nigga live, because I was going to do a man for you, Ananias, because I ain't like how he came at you. You know what I'm saying? I'm the Most High God. And you my man's in him. You know what I'm saying? I'm a ride or die. You know what I'm saying? No, matter of fact, let me just go back, because you know what I came to do. I came to wreck shop. I'll go back. So the Most High said, all right, I'll go back. You know what I'm saying? I came to, because he was about that. But Ananias prayed for the safety of Helio, because he understood that if he died there and the king find out that he's dead, they're gonna be like, oh dang, they done killed my messenger. So now it's back set up again. It's wartime. So smart move on a man to, pray for the wealth of this man so God can heal him. So, they won't get back into, fighting again, right? So so it says, so the angel put the spirit on him to be gracious and thankful of the help of Ananias, right? So it says, and seeing that thou hast been scourged from heaven, declared unto all men that the mighty power of God. And when they had spoken these words, they appeared no more. So the angel was like, look, since you know what's going on, you know that the Most High God had a hand in this, and he brought you back. Go spread the word on how you thought you can go mess with the Lord's people, and the Most High God got down on you. The Most High God got down on you, and showed you how he protects his people, right? Go tell everybody that God protects his people. Is essentially what he's saying. It says, so Heliodorus, after he had offered sacrifice unto the Lord and made great vows unto him that had saved his life, and saluted Ananias, returned with his host to the king. Then testified he to all men the works of the great God, which he had seen with his own eyes. Like, look, there's a God in Jerusalem, for real though. I'm telling you. Look, God he killed me. Then he brought me back to life. I'm trying to tell you. Don't, it's a God in Israel. Don't mess with them people, right? So he's telling his testimony of how he was brought from the break of death, and how, from the sacrifice and prayers of Ananias, his righteousness, God healed him and allowed him to come back to spread the word, to let them know, don't you mess with them people. Right? Don't you go over there messing with them people. Right? So, what did it say? And when the king said, asked Heliodorus, who might be a fit man to be sent yet once again to Jerusalem. So now this is a cold part, and this became today probably one of my favorite biblical quotes. Now that it's on the list because this is I never noticed this before. It's kind of cool, and this should be telling to anybody that want to mess with the Israelites and God's people, right? This is what Helio the rest told the king. Like, look, if cause he asked okay, then who should I send? Okay, alright, okay, who should I send then? Since you couldn't get the job done, who should I send to go get that money from them Israelites, right? What did he say? He's like, if thou has any enemy or a traitor, send him. That's what he told him. Like, look, hey, look, whoever you don't mess with, send him to go talk to the Israelites. Whoever you think is a traitor or enemy of yours, send them to go deal with the Israelites, right? That's what you should say, right? And you know why he said that? Because he thought he can rob God. Can a man rob God, right? He thought he can just walk up in the temple and just take what he want and leave what he whatever he got in his hands. But then the Most High God showed him the power, right? We didn't have to lift up not one weapon against these people, right? Because the Bible tells us that the Most High God is the King of terror, right? The Bible calls him that. He's the King of terror, right? We didn't have to lift up not one sword, and the man knew what time it was, right? Spiritual power. That's why the Bible says our weapons are not carnal, but our weapons are spiritual, right? You gotta understand that. And it says, if thou hast any enemy or traitor, send him hither, and thou shalt receive him well, scourge, if he escapes with his life. He like, look, if you ever want to get back with anybody that been messing with you, send them to the land of Israel on a dummy mission. And if they do make it and able to survive, you will be satisfied because they will, what it say, they will be well scourged. What it say? It says, and you shall receive him well scourged, meaning he's going to be jacked the messed up when he comes back. You see me? Look at me. I'm messed up. That's what he's telling him. Now, if you want to punish somebody, send your enemy to go deal with them people, because they have that God over there. I tell you, that Yahweh they got over there, he's nothing to play with, right? So it says, if thou have any enemy or traitor, send him hither, and thou shalt receive him well scourged. Meaning they're gonna jack him up, right? They're gonna if he make it out alive, he's gonna be really messed up. If he escapes with his life, for in that place, no doubt there is a special power of Yahweh. There's a special power of God, right? And they understood this, right? These people know that the God that we serve, there's something special about that guy. That's why they try to incorporate our book and try to romanticize it and make all these different religions and all that stuff, because they know what it say. There is a special power of God, right? For he that dwell in heaven has his eye on that place and defend it, right? He knew that. He says there is a special power of God, and he that dwell in heaven has his eye on that place and defends it. And he that beateth and destroy them will and he beateth and destroy them that come up to hurt it. That's what God does, right? He protects us and he protects that land. And them people learned today, as dude said, you gonna learn today. They learned that day. Helios the Rust learned that day. And he told the king, like, look, I'm not going back there, but if you want to send somebody there, I advise you to send an enemy or somebody that you don't really mess with. That's what you said. Don't send me. I ain't going back. I'm your friend. If I'm your friend, if I'm your boy, if I'm your top soldier, don't send me. Send an enemy, right? For in that place No doubt there is a special power of God. For he that dwell in heaven have his eye on that place and defend it. And he that beat and he beateth and destroy them that cometh to hurt it. That's how he feels about that place. And the things concerning Helio the rust and keeping the saints and keeping the treasury fell out of this sort. So the dude like, look, the king like, all right, Helio, you know what? You fired. You fired. Like, Day, this your cousin? Yeah, that's my cousin. Well, Day, you fired too, right? He fired this man. He like, you know what? You can't be in charge of the treasury no more, cause you too much of a punk. You can't go over to Jerusalem, them little Jews, them little punk Jews over there, and take they and come on, though. Like, you know what? You're not even in charge of the treasury no more. Get up. You know, I'm gonna get somebody else, right? So it says he fell out, of that matter meeting. Like I said, that wasn't his job no more. Like, all right, you're not the treasurer no more. Then, since you can't follow the simple order, all I ask you to do, go rob the house of God. You can't even go rob the house of God, right? Pastors do it every Sunday, robbing the house of God. You can't do it. So yeah, he got fired technically, in layman's terms, because we have a Most High God that defends us. So yeah, as you can see, our people went through it, dealing with these Romans and Greeks, right? And, we went through it. So yeah, I'm going to end it there. So hopefully that was edifying. We still continuing on in this Black History BC saga that we got going on, getting into our the Hasmonean dynasty, the Maccabean brothers, right? The story of this great thing we call Hanukkah, the Feast of Dedication. So I'm going to say shalom, peace. Hopefully that was edifying and all that cool stuff. We're going to continue doing our cool thing, right? Get these things lit up really quick, yo. Yeah. But yeah, I'm going to say peace, shalom. Until next time, we out.